Sunrise, another day, another patrol. The Appalachian Trail stretched before me, a ribbon of brown cutting through a sea of green. The air, crisp and cool, carried the scent of pine and damp earth. Normal, peaceful, or so I thought. My boots crunched on the path, a familiar rhythm that usually calmed me. Not today. A knot of unease tightened in my gut. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, eyes on my back. I told myself it was just the wind rustling the leaves, the squirrels darting through branches. But deep down, I knew it was something more. The forest always held whispers, stories whispered on the wind, tales of strange creatures lurking in the shadows. I dismissed them as folklore, campfire stories to scare city folk. Now I wasn't so sure. Dusk painted the forest in shades of gray and purple. The trees stood tall, their silhouettes stark against the dimming sky, creating an almost surreal landscape. The air was thick with the scent of pine and damp earth, a reminder of the recent rain. The forest was alive with the sounds of nature settling in for the night, a symphony of rustling leaves and distant animal calls. I was heading back to the ranger station, fatigue settling in my bones. The day's patrol had been long and uneventful, and I was looking forward to the warmth and safety of the station. My boots crunched softly on the forest floor, the only sound in the growing twilight. The path was familiar, but tonight it felt different. There was an unsettling stillness in the air, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. That's when I heard it, a sound that didn't belong. It cut through the natural chorus of the forest, sending a shiver down my spine. I stopped in my tracks, straining to hear it again, my heart beginning to race. A low growl, guttural and deep, resonated from the thick undergrowth. It wasn't a bear, I knew that sound. This was something different, something hungry. The growl seemed to vibrate through the ground, making the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I had encountered many animals in these woods, but this was unlike anything I had ever heard before. My hand instinctively went to the bear spray on my belt, my heart pounding against my ribs. The cold metal of the canister was a small comfort, a reminder that I wasn't completely defenseless. But would it be enough? I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever was out there was watching me, waiting for the right moment to strike. I scanned the woods, my senses on high alert. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig, seemed amplified in the silence. My eyes darted from shadow to shadow, searching for any sign of movement. The forest, usually so familiar and comforting, now felt alien and threatening. Shadows danced at the edge of my vision. They seemed to move with a life of their own, twisting and contorting into shapes that made my imagination run wild. I tried to focus, to separate reality from the tricks my mind was playing on me, but it was difficult. The fear was palpable, a living thing that wrapped itself around me. The growl came again, closer this time. Panic tightened its grip. It was louder, more insistent, as if whatever was making it was growing bolder. I could feel the vibrations in my chest, a primal sound that spoke of danger and predation. My instincts screamed at me to run, but my legs felt like lead. I quickened my pace, the sound of my own breath echoing in my ears. Each step felt like an eternity, the path stretching out before me like a never-ending tunnel. I could hear my heartbeat, a frantic drumbeat that matched the rhythm of my footsteps. The forest seemed to close in around me, the trees pressing closer, their branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. I didn't see what made the sound, but I felt it, a presence, cold and menacing, followed me through the trees. It was as if the very air had turned against me, thickening with a sense of impending doom. I could almost feel eyes on me, watching my every move, waiting for me to make a mistake. A presence, cold and menacing, followed me through the trees. It was a feeling I couldn't shake, a weight that pressed down on me with every step. The forest, once a place of solace and peace, had become a labyrinth of fear and uncertainty. I knew I had to keep moving to reach the safety of the ranger station before it was too late. It was watching, waiting. The unseen presence was a constant companion, a shadow that mirrored my every move. I could feel its anticipation, a predator toying with its prey. The forest was no longer just a backdrop. It had become a living, breathing entity, and I was caught in its grasp. Sleep offered no escape. The growl echoed in my dreams, morphing into bone-chilling screams that jolted me awake. Days turned into a blur of unease. Every creak of the cabin floorboards, every rustle of leaves outside my window sent shivers down my spine. I started seeing things in the periphery of my vision, a flash of white against the trees, the impression of a hunched figure disappearing into the undergrowth. Each time I'd spin around, heart racing, only to find nothing. My colleagues noticed the change in me, the haunted look in my eyes, the way I jumped at every little sound. I tried to tell them about the growl, the feeling of being watched, but the words caught in my throat. How do you explain the unexplainable? The discovery hit me like a physical blow. I had been patrolling these woods for years, and never had I encountered something so gruesome, so utterly out of place. The forest, usually a sanctuary of life and tranquility, now felt like a scene from a nightmare. A deer, its carcass mangled and torn, lay sprawled on the trail. The sight was horrific, the kind of thing that sticks with you long after you've looked away. Its lifeless eyes seemed to stare into the void, a silent testament to the violence it had endured. The smell of death hung heavy in the air. It was a stench that clung to the back of my throat, making it hard to breathe. The fog that had settled over the forest only added to the oppressive atmosphere, shrouding everything in a ghostly pallor. But it wasn't the sight that chilled me to the bone. It was the silence. An unnatural, almost deafening silence that seemed to swallow every sound. The forest, usually alive with the sounds of birdsong and rustling leaves, was eerily quiet. It was as if the entire woodland was holding its breath, waiting for something terrible to happen. The forest, usually alive with the sounds of birdsong and rustling leaves, was eerily quiet. The absence of noise was unsettling, a stark contrast to the usual symphony of nature. It felt as though the forest itself was mourning the loss of one of its own. I knelt beside the deer, my stomach churning. The closer I looked, the more disturbing the scene became. The wounds were deep and vicious, as if inflicted by some monstrous creature. I had seen my fair share of predator attacks, but this was different. This was something far more sinister. The bite marks were unlike anything I'd ever seen. They were too large for a coyote or a bobcat, and too clean for any predator I knew. It was as if the creature that did this had surgical precision, a chilling thought that sent shivers down my spine. Too large for a coyote or a bobcat. The tracks around the carcass were equally perplexing. They were deep and wide, suggesting a creature of considerable size and strength. But what kind of animal could leave such marks? And why had it chosen this deer as its victim? Too clean for any predator I knew. The precision of the bites was unnerving, almost as if the creature had taken its time, savoring the kill. It was a level of brutality and control that I had never encountered in the wild. Fear, cold and sharp, pierced through the haze of my growing paranoia. I had always considered myself a rational person, grounded in the realities of nature. But this was something else entirely. It felt like I had stepped into a different world, one where the rules I knew no longer applied. Something was hunting in these woods, something far more terrifying than I could have imagined. The thought of it sent a chill down my spine, a primal fear that I couldn't shake. I knew I had to report this, but the words seemed to elude me. Something far more terrifying than I could have imagined. The shadows seemed to move, playing tricks on my eyes. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig made my heart race. I felt like I was being watched, stalked by an unseen predator. My hand trembled as I reached for my radio. The device felt heavy in my grasp, a lifeline to the outside world. I needed to call for help, to alert the others, but my mind was a whirlwind of fear and confusion. "Dispatch, this is Ranger Miller." My voice sounded foreign to my own ears, shaky and uncertain. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "We have a situation at..." I trailed off, the enormity of what I was about to report hitting me all over again. "We have a situation at..." The words felt inadequate, unable to convey the true horror of what I had found. How could I explain the inexplicable? How could I make them understand the fear that gripped me? The words died in my throat. A wave of dizziness washed over me, and for a moment, the world went black. When I came to, I was lying on the forest floor, the radio still clutched in my hand. I knew I had to get up, to keep moving, but my body felt like lead. A wave of dizziness washed over me, and for a moment the world went black. The forest seemed to close in around me, the trees towering like silent sentinels. I had to find out what was happening, but first, I needed to survive. Face to face with the unknown. A fleeting glimpse on Bodycam. They found me unconscious next to the deer carcass, said I must have tripped and hit my head. But I knew better. The feeling of being watched intensified, a constant pressure on my sanity. I started wearing my Bodycam even during the day, a desperate attempt to capture whatever was tormenting me. Then it happened. a blur of movement at the edge of the tree line. A pale, almost translucent figure darted across the path. It was too fast to make out clearly, but I saw them. Long, claw-like fingers, eyes that glinted in the dim light. My blood ran cold. The footage was blurry, distorted. Not enough to convince anyone, but it was enough for me. I wasn't going crazy. There was something out there. The forest bleed's terror grips the ranger station. The disappearances started soon after. A hiker gone missing. Then a group of teenagers camping in the park, each vanishing accompanied by the same chilling silence, the same sense of dread that clung to me like a shroud. The ranger station, once a place of camaraderie and laughter, became shrouded in fear. Whispers of the creature, the rake as some called it, replaced stories of daring rescues and close calls. Morale plummeted. Rangers, seasoned veterans with years of experience, were turning in their badges, their faces pale and drawn. They felt it too. The unseen presence, the feeling of eyes constantly watching. The forest was bleeding terror, and we were all caught in its grip. Isolation and desperation. The walls close in. I became a recluse, withdrawing into myself, the walls of my cabin closing in like a coffin. Sleep evaded me, replaced by a constant state of hypervigilance. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of leaves outside my window sent my pulse racing. I filled notebooks with frantic scribbles, documenting my encounters, my fears, my descent into madness. The words poured out of me, a torrent of terror and despair. But the more I wrote, the less real it seemed. Was I losing my mind, or was the forest itself turning against me? The line between reality and nightmare blurred. I saw the rake everywhere, lurking in the shadows, its eyes burning into my soul. I was trapped in a waking nightmare, and there was no escape. Final transmission. A desperate plea and a haunting image. My last transmission to the station was garbled, punctuated by sobs and heavy breaths. "It's here," I whispered, my voice hoarse with fear. "I can hear it breathing. It won't stop until I'm gone." The line went dead, the silence deafening in its wake. My final act of defiance, of sanity, was setting up a camera in my cabin. I aimed it at the doorway, a silent sentinel against the encroaching darkness. Then, I waited. The footage, recovered later, showed me, hunched over, my face a mask of terror, muttering to myself. Then a flicker of movement in the doorway. A glimpse of the rake, its eyes glowing with malevolent hunger. The screen went black. That was the last anyone saw of me, alive at least. The cabin empty, yet filled with dread. It stood alone in the heart of the forest, a relic of forgotten times. The air around it was thick with an unsettling silence, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves or the distant call of a nocturnal creature. The very sight of it sent chills down the spine of anyone who dared to approach. They found my cabin abandoned. The door creaked open, revealing a space that seemed frozen in time. Dust particles danced in the beams of sunlight that managed to pierce through the grimy windows. Every corner of the cabin whispered tales of solitude and despair. My notebooks lay open on the floor, the pages filled with my frantic scribblings, a testament to my descent into madness. Each page was a window into my tormented mind, filled with sketches and notes that made little sense to the untrained eye. They were my desperate attempts to document the horrors I had witnessed. The camera, still running, captured the empty room, the silence broken only by the creaking of the floorboards. It had been my only companion, recording every moment of my isolation. The footage it held was a silent witness to the events that had unfolded within those walls. But it was the final frame, a fleeting image captured just as the battery died, that sent shivers down the spines of even the most hardened investigators. The image was blurry, almost indistinguishable, but it held a sinister presence that was impossible to ignore. There, in the corner of the room, partially obscured by shadow, stood the rake. Its presence was both terrifying and mesmerizing, a creature of nightmares brought to life. The shadows seemed to cling to it, as if the darkness itself was afraid to let it go. Its pale, gaunt figure seemed to blend into the darkness, its eyes 2 points of malevolent light. It was watching, waiting. Those eyes, glowing with an unnatural light, seemed to pierce through the very soul of anyone who looked into them. It was a predator, biding its time. A silent predator claiming its territory. The cabin was its domain, and I had trespassed. The air grew colder, and the sense of dread became almost palpable. It was as if the very walls of the cabin were closing in, suffocating me with their oppressive presence. The creature, whatever it was, vanished without a trace. One moment it was there, and the next it was gone, leaving behind only the echo of its presence. The room felt emptier than before, as if the very essence of the creature had been absorbed by the shadows, leaving behind only unanswered questions and a lingering sense of dread. The investigators were left with more questions than answers, their minds haunted by the image of the rake. The cabin, once a place of solitude, had become a monument to fear. The forest had claimed another victim. Its dark, twisted branches seemed to reach out, as if to pull the cabin and its secrets deeper into its depths. The silence of the forest was deafening, a reminder of the horrors that lay hidden within its shadows. A warning: heed the silence, for the forest listens. They say the Appalachian Trail is haunted, that the woods whisper with the souls of those lost within its depths. I can't say for sure if that's true, but I can tell you this. If you ever find yourself walking those ancient paths, and you hear the silence, a hush that seems to swallow the very air you breathe, turn back. If you hear it breathing, don't breathe back.